It's so stupid, it's positively brilliant.
The Brilliant Boys Podcast.
Can I ask a question? Because I heard this criticism and I thought it was interesting, but maybe you have a different perspective on it, which is I heard it from a buddy of mine who's liberal, my boy Robbie, who works on the monologues with us. And he's like very liberal, but he said this: it is curious that you see all this uprising and all this like protests and all this like rioting in liberal run cities with liberal mayors and liberal politicians and liberal I don't know, governors or whatever, like not governor of a city, but like what, and he goes, it begs the question, is liberal politics no different in terms of what they can do for people, but are they rather only just lying and selling a dream that they can't cash in?
I mean, that's been the question, right? That's been the question throughout the whole Trump administration. That was the question when Hillary was running.
But what do you think about that when you see all these like?
I'm gonna get to that.
My bad.
Who exposed that was Barack, right? Because Barack was in the White House for 8 years,
right?
So you got what people thought was the most progressive, even though he's moderate, most progressive. Black, he's black,
right?
He's liberal, he's Democrat. Like, America's about to change, but it didn't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it didn't. So now when you sit back and you look around, and that's been something that they've been pointing out, like, you look at all of these cities that are run by liberals, the crime is the worst, the poverty is the worst. It's just like, that's what's got people saying, what are we voting for? That's what's got people jumping over to the other side of the aisle saying, I'm down to vote conservative because they putting some money in the hood. They offering something. Like, people have been turned off by the Democrats. And I'm gonna tell you something, if we don't see something very radical, if Joe Biden wins, I'm talking about Lyndon B. Johnson radical, like culture changing, shifting.
Right.
Black people might bounce from the Democratic Party altogether. They might just be independents, or like my man Wes Bellamy, he's got the Black Liberty Party now. I expect to see more of that happening. Bob Johnson was calling for Black Lives Matter to be its own political party. I can easily see black people going with any of these parties and just voting with whoever has their best interest at heart, voting their interest like we always should anyway. But I can see a lot more of that, in 20, when is the next?
24?
Midterms. Well, the presidential like 2024, midterms be like 2022.
Oh, 2022, yeah.
I could easily see people just voting in blocks starting in 2022.
It's just interesting because I never consider like that. And then when it was kind of laid out to me where you see all this unrest and these people who are fighting back, these people who are staunchly Democratic, staunchly liberal, hate Trump, are fighting back against systemic oppression when the people that are elected in their cities are Democratic, staunchly liberal, and represent all their beliefs. So it's like, what system are you fighting back against? And how is this the Republicans' fault if you've done your job as a citizen to elect these people that reflect your views? Why not take some accountability and be like, yo, apparently the people we're electing or the views that we have aren't getting us out of this situation. Like, it's almost as if they're protesting themselves.
Bro, one of the most impactful ads that I've seen is this ad that shows Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi. And it says something like 100+ years combined of political failure.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you're trying to blame Trump. You've been in the Senate all of these years. 40+ years for some of these people, but you're trying to blame Trump for what's going on, for what's not happening in America because he's been in the last 3. It's serious. It's like it's kind of crazy.
And again, I think that when people hear this, they go, "Oh, here you are stumping for Trump," or it has nothing to do with Trump. Like every criticism that someone has of Trump, okay, perfect. Let's go with it. Let's say you're right about every criticism you have for Trump. I think the argument you brought up is, which is great, which is like, well, if these are the 3 people that are running the Democratic Party, and these are the 3 people that are making, the Democrat or choosing the direction of the Democratic Party, and that party has not been helping the people that they're supposed to represent, And the cities that those people live in are the ones that are rioting and doing all this other stuff. Don't you think it's almost in Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and whoever the other person you said, don't you think it's in their best interest that you take all your rage out on Trump and not out on them? I'd rather you be upset at that other guy than me, especially if I'm the one lying to your ass for over 40 years.
Hey, man.
You're acting like these cities haven't had Republican mayors, though.
Who? Who was
New
Portland?
York City had
Who was Portland's?
Giuliani and Bloomberg.
Who was Portland's Republican mayor?
I don't know, not Portland, but I mean, these cities have had Republican mayors. I mean,
Let's
you
take.
think things were better in Philadelphia under Frank Rizzo?
No, I don't know, Chris. Again, I'm asking the question, but like, I would go so far as to say that I don't know. I go. What's up, Al?
Crime is
he's not listen, he's not wrong. I mean, this is a stat, and I just looked it up so I can be clear. America's 25 worst cities are Democrat led. That's just a fact. Like you can't argue with facts. And yes, when you see Joe Biden as the president, it's like, damn, we're not gonna try nothing new. We tried something new with President Obama. President Obama was something new. I thought the Democrats would continue to go down that lane. I thought that they would continue to get blacker, browner, younger, more diverse with gender. And Joe Biden scares people because yes, it feels like some of the same old.
One second, Al wants to say something, but another thing, Chris, and again, Chris, I'm just asking these questions here, but I feel like the only way you can make change is through accountability. And I feel like just pointing the finger at the other side doesn't acknowledge, I don't know, the failures of your own side in a way. And
Sure. I mean, look, the Democratic mayors have failed. I mean, to me, it's more a call of like, do we really want a two-party system? You know, like we don't have to be married to a two-party system.
Right.
I agree.
A lot of countries have multiple parties, and that can get confusing and it can cause issues, and you have to build coalitions. But in a way, it keeps people more accountable, right? And that's what I would like to see.
I'm with you on that.
When I vote locally in New York City, I always vote Green Party, Working Party, even if the candidate's on the Democratic ticket, because I just want to encourage there being more diversity in terms of your choices. I don't think it's healthy just to have two parties.
So I'm with you on that. I just feel like if I was one of those old senators that's been, preaching about all the change you're going to make and how much you're going to help minorities and how much you're going to help the oppressed, but hasn't done anything to do it in 40 years, I would love if you focus all your attention on that other party. I would love if you focus that attention on Trump and Mitch McConnell and all these other characters over on the right, because it takes the attention off of me and the fact that I haven't done anything. That's just what I would love. Alex, what were you going to say?
just one thing to note too. Crime is related to dense populations,
Right.
And
That
most
makes
dense
sense.
populations lean Democratic. So it's like that. I wouldn't say it's the governmental rule that's causing the crime. I think it's just the population.
Al brings up a good point about
What
correlation.
You mean, dense? You mean like cities?
Yeah,
like major metropolises.
like
That's not necessarily true though, because I mean, you got Memphis and these rural areas like Augusta, Georgia, and Florence, South Carolina.
Yeah, there'll
You know what
always
I'm
be
saying?
some
like
outliers.
Macon,
but-
Georgia. Like I'm looking at the list right now. Like you got cities on there, but you got really it's these rural areas. Albany, Georgia. Monroe, Louisiana. Florence, South Carolina. Mobile, Alabama. Like,
It is interesting. I mean, it's just interesting. It's just like if you really want to make change at a certain point in time, it got to be a lot less finger wagging. There's got to be a little bit more pointing at yourself and just going, all right, what can we do? And by self, I don't mean like literally what can I do as a person, but more like holding your party accountable. If you got these motherfuckers that are representing you and you are out in your own city destroying the city and protesting against the city, you are effectively protesting against your decision to elect people.
people have lost faith in the Democrats at the worst possible time.
And that's the Democrats' fault. Like,
That's
fuck.
definitely the Democrats' fault.
Like-
2016 was the worst possible time. And people stayed home. Like I say this number all the time: 4.4 million people who voted in 2012
Did it?
stayed home in 2016.
Yeah.
A third of them were black. And don't be surprised if people stay home like that in 2020. Don't be shocked. And guess what? It's nobody's fault but the Democrats. And they're always putting the burden on black and brown voters to show up for them when they haven't shown up for black and brown voters in fucking decades.